So, Deer Creek Night 1 kicked off with a solid punch you in the eye. Trey navigated the landlady section pretty well, though maybe at a slightly slower pace than some of the classic versions. But hey, that precision really set a promising tone for the evening.
Oh, such a violent title.
All in good fun, Leslie. And speaking of setting the tone, Kill Devil Falls followed up with some hints of Type 2 territory. They played around with some exploratory key changes, and Mike kept things lively with some exciting bass lines. Around the 8-minute mark, Trey let loose with a few sustained notes, and Mike dropped some serious bass bombs. But in the end, the jam circled back to the chorus instead of breaking free entirely.
Sounds like they almost took the scenic route, but decided to stick to the main road. For real though, a little housekeeping, pop quiz, what is Type 2?
Ask Anne. She's a nurse.
Type 2, yeah. It's jamming that doesn't stay on the song's theme, which they didn't. They went somewhere uncharted. You know, Leslie, they might have gotten lost and just Ubered home. I feel like Trey does that sometimes.
They needed my binders. That would have kept them en route and on schedule.
Leslie, nope, everyone.
Exactly, Leslie. After that, we got halfway to the moon and heavy things, which gave everyone those familiar sing-along moments. Sure, yeah, bit of a musical group hug, letting the crowd settle in after the more intense openers.
And settle they did. And then Life Saving Gun brought in some crunchy dance grooves, thanks to Paige's clavinet and Phish's sweet polyrhythms. Less than 5 minutes in, Paige switched to synth, hinting at a deeper dive. But just like with KDF before it, the jam stayed close to home, returning to the song's theme without fully breaking free. Solid for a set one version, but it didn't reach the heights of some of their more exploratory jams.
Sounds like they teased us with a deep dive, but kept it shallow enough to wade through.
Not sure they had a permit for that depth.
In my state of mind, it actually would have been a safety hazard.
Yes, Ann Perkins. You were tasting the rainbow. So well then Trey threw in some playful banter, introducing Fishman's new nickname, Percussion Rinse, before the band eased into shade. I like shade. And it was giving the crowd a much-needed breather.
Really want to know the joke behind the rinse thing. You know it's a good one.
Harris. After that, Pillow Jets moved quickly through its composed section before transitioning into a dissonant, murky jam. Trey pushed the pace around the 8-minute mark, which led to a crowd-pleasing, if somewhat unremarkable, runaway Jim. An extra lap through the initial refrain threw both band and audience for a loop, adding a little unexpected tension.
And speaking of unexpected, they closed the set with Day in the Life. It hadn't been played since the Met show in 2019, so it was a real treat. The band showcased their newer effects, and CK5 got to flex his LED magic. The crescendos were particularly well executed, with Paige's piano work really standing out.
A Day in the Life with LEDs? Sounds like a light show with a killer soundtrack.
It was a perfect way to end the set, leaving everyone pumped for what was still to come.
So, set 2 kicked off with a nicely played O Ki Pa ceremony that transitioned into Axilla. Part 2, a bit of an unexpected move, but it totally worked. Then the real meat of the set started with Down with Disease. The jam took off at a frantic pace, which usually means a shorter ride, but this one had some tricks up its sleeve. They ventured into some spacey, out there territory before landing on this gnarly prog rock riff. Around the 12-minute mark, Trey and Paige locked in, with Trey shredding like Hendrix for a solid 2 minutes. And when they couldn't find a smooth landing, they just finished the song proper before launching into sense and subtle sounds.
Haha, Chris. That Sense jam was the highlight of the night, hands down. It started off beautifully, building intensity as the rain started coming down. Around 18 minutes in, Trey took us back to themes from the Disease jam, and it felt like we were stepping into Allman Brothers territory. Then, out of nowhere, hints of DWD resurfaced, and the band executed that rarely played Disease ending, complete with vocals.
They packed a whole concert's worth of jams into one song. It's like the musical version of an all-you-can-eat buffet, but with more jams and fewer breadsticks.
And, if they had my efficiency charts, they could have squeezed in a few more songs too. Not that I'm complaining, but there's always room for improvement.
Leslie, you'd have them playing 50 songs a set. But you're right. It was jam-packed. And then, what's the use? Provided this perfect moment of reflection as the light rain kept falling. Golden Age started off like it was going to be a standard version, but then, out of nowhere, this synth jam blossomed into I Always Wanted It This Way. It was like a burst of energy, with the band firing on all cylinders. And to top it all off, they threw in another Disease ending to close the set.
Exactly. And to bring it all home, the You Enjoy Myself encore was spot on. Despite some flubs in the first set, Trey nailed the composed section here. The jam had the whole band locked in, with Paige and Mike especially vibing during the funk breakdown, and just when you thought it was over, Trey throws in a playful nod to Disease during the vocal jam before he grabs his guitar and leads the band through a fourth and final run of the DWD ending.
4 Disease endings? That's a doctor's nightmare, but a Phish fan's dream.
Harris, you're not wrong. While it might not have reached the same improvisational peaks as some recent shows, this Deer Creek opener was a masterclass in crafting a cohesive, entertaining set. The Sense and Subtle Sounds jam will probably go down as one of the year's best, and those repeated Disease teases tied the whole show together like a perfectly wrapped present.
And with a bow on top, though, next time, maybe we could add a few more songs to the set list, just to keep things efficient.
Yeah, Leslie, and maybe throw in some lasers, fireworks, and a giant inflatable dancing tray. Gotta keep the crowd on their toes.